Well, thanks for staying with us here in the 9 p.m. Urban Debate, and we move on to the other big conversation point. And this one we've often spoken about and debated here on the Mirror Now primetime shows. The electoral bonds and the transparency in our political funding. I have made it amply clear many times, and I have no qualms in saying it again, that I think it's a problem when our political parties, when your Neta and my Neta doesn't tell us where he is getting his money from. I think it is a problem that we are not told who's funding our Neta, our political party, and helping them fight elections and win elections, economically speaking. Because tomorrow, if they turn around and start favoring those entities, I would like to know why my government has taken these decisions. I think it is a problem that this government that's actually brought about these electoral bonds, these very opaque system of political funding, this government that insists on implementing existing laws of FCRA for international funding and foreign funding for our NGOs, that insists on going after our farmers, asking them where they are getting their foreign funds from, where activists and their non-governmental organizations are getting their foreign funds from, but refuses to tell us when political parties get their foreign funds. Refuses to tell us when political parties get any funds, no matter from who it is. And tonight we talk once again about this because the Central Information Commission, the CIC, has also now come ahead and said that there is no need and no public interest in revealing this information. The lead body for implementing the RTI, the one tool that we have for seeking information and bringing out the truth, CIC has ruled that the disclosure of identity of electoral bond donors will not serve any large public interest, and it violates the provisions of the Act itself. How did this happen? Because an RTI was filed seeking details of the donors with the SBI. The electoral bonds are issued by the SBI. They have all the details. So an RTI was filed. And the SBI said, no, we can't give you this information. And then this reached the CIC. And the CIC said, no, there is no public interest. Now, I want to understand tonight of why this has been said. What is the rationale there? Why should I, as a voter and a citizen of this country, not know who is funding my Neta? Take a look at what's happening across the world. And in US, for example, the Federal Election Commission regulates the funds. The eligibility of contribution and the contributor is determined by this commission. The contributions are subjected to limited specified individuals. Political parties and committees can only contribute in such a manner. There are national banks and professional corporations who cannot contribute. There are rules and regulations and periodic reports that disclose the details of the funds and the money that's been spent. Candidates need to disclose the funds to the party committees. The party committees need to identify, report the donations over a certain amount. That is how transparent they are. In United Kingdom, a party with income of over £2.5 lakh is to get its accounts audited. And the audit of funds obviously is required during the campaign period itself. The US Electoral Commission checks for permissibility of the donation. Our Election Commission, I don't know if they have these details as well. And why shouldn't they make these details public? There are more and more examples of the kind of transparency that many other countries have brought in. But we, for some reason, are moving away from it. Let's say good evening to the panelists who are joining us right now. SHAILESH Gandhi, former Central Information Commissioner, joins us this evening. Dr. S.Y. Qureshi, former CEC, with us this evening. MANU SUNDARAM, spokesperson for the DMK, also joining us this evening. Mr. SUDESH Verma, spokesperson for the BJP. And JUNIE Singh of the Samajwadi Party also joins us this evening. Good evening to you. Mr. Qureshi, I want to come across to you first. I'm trying to understand this rationale. Why isn't it not in my interest to know who's funding my Neta?
I don't know who said that, and it is absolutely ridiculous. That is the first thing we want to know. because in politics it is the quid pro quo that we are concerned about. And that was the whole purpose of transparency of political funding. Before the electoral bond, every donation of more than 20,000 was brought to the knowledge of the Election Commission. And in fact, when the electoral bonds were introduced by the finance minister in his budget speech, he started beautifully. His first sentence was very significant. He says, without transparency of political funding, free and fair elections are not possible. His second statement was that in 70 years, we have failed to achieve that. So we expected the third sentence to bring about the transparency, and instead what he introduced was the electoral bond. And later on, it was explained that the donors want secrecy. Now, donors may want secrecy because they have to hide their quid pro quo. And what is the quid pro quo? The contracts, the licenses, and even the bank loans with which they run away. So that is the quid pro quo which they wanted to hide, and they brought it ironically in the name of transparency. I think this is the biggest fraud committed on India's democracy.
So, Mr. Qureshi and Dr. Qureshi, I'm trying to understand why is it that the CIC will now give this kind of a ruling and say it's okay to not give this information? Is it because of the way the Act has now been designed, because of the law that has been created?
I don't know. I don't know exactly what he has said, but he has to account for it. He has to answer it. Yeah. Because it makes no sense. I told you the reason why we want to know, why people want to know. Because if somebody has donated, which corporate has donated how many crores, so that we know what are the concessions being given in return. That transparency is absolutely essential. And it is very strange for the CIC to come out with this kind of a decision. I don't know on what basis.
Mr. Shailesh Gandhi, can you shed some more light on this? Still trying to understand what was said.
Mr. Qureshi explained how the Central Election Commission has failed in this respect. I have read the order given by the Central Information Commission. It is rubbish. It is not worth the paper it is written on, and I am saying this with deep pain. This is a very important matter, and on 3 counts, it goes. First, it gives no reasoning. It just accepts whatever the government says and says this is okay. It gives no reasoning how it comes to the conclusion that it is exempt. 2, it makes a statement in one of the orders that the political parties are not public authorities. I am horrified. There is a decision of the commission which says these 6 political parties are public authorities, which has not been challenged, which has not been stayed by any court. The political parties are acting like ruffians, not following the law. But for the commission to say this is absurd. It almost looks as if somebody is dictating the order to the commission and commission has just signed on that. 2, it says it is information relating to personal information. The point is, very clearly the law says information which relates to personal information, the disclosure of which has no relationship to any public activity or interest, or which would cause unwarranted invasion of the privacy of the individual. Individual is the word. Not political parties. Political parties cannot be individuals, and therefore this is completely bad in law. Thirdly, it says it's a fiduciary relationship. This is no fiduciary relationship as borne out by a Supreme Court judgment in the RBI case. On all, no reasoning has been given. The commissioner just records that the respondent has said this, the government says this, and I accept it. That is all. There is no reasoning at any nature, and it's a horrible decision. It's very sad. It's a sad day. The Election Commission has failed, as Mr. Qureshi says, and unfortunately, with deep pain, I am saying this, for a matter like this, it's been done so nonchalantly. It is almost looks as if it has been done to please somebody.
Okay.
Which is
well, let me ask Mr. Sudesh Sharma, maybe he can help us understand why this was the right thing to do.
Yeah, am I audible, Tanvi?
Yes, you are.
Okay, Tanvi, thank you. Let me try to explain, because it's a very, very elaborate issue. It cannot be, in the form of a debate that I say something, somebody else says something. Let's go by the law. When the CIC rejects it, it is based on law. And it is based on law because there is a fiduciary interest involved in this. Fiduciary interest is, I know, sir, you were CIC, but I have also read a lot about RTI. And before coming here, I have done my homework. Kindly listen to me. Please don't nod in the negative, because I am also trying to make sense of what the debate is all about. And you see, fiduciary interest is that when the law was made, 3 acts were amended: the Income Tax Act, the RPI Act, and the other act related to that, so that all these acts enable that people can make transparent donations.
This is false.
Can I complete, sir? If you rule like that, then I may not.
Okay, Mr. Gandhi, let him finish it, because you and I know where he is going with it, but many of our viewers may want to hear what he has to say.
Positive.
Yeah.
I did not in the negative or positive, because I know what the sense of the debate is all about, and I'm not shying away from the debate. When this issue came for discussion, all the parties said that there should be secrecy of donors that should be maintained. There were differences of opinion, and here, Tanvi, let me clarify, because what you say can send a wrong impression. Here, the SBI issues the bond, but the bond is printed in a secret security and printing, the government of India's undertaking, where it is a very, very secret thing. You cannot have access to it. And the person who is donating, even the political parties would not know who is donating. It can come through an envelope, but the donation is transparent. That is very important, because it is coming in the form of bond that can go up to 1 crore rupees. And we did it. The government thought that this was the best way in the evolving situation where donation can be done through that. And here people need to know whether political parties are getting money which is accountable and also spending the money which is accountable. But political parties cannot say that they have received the bond, say, from A, B, C companies, because theoretically they are not supposed to know. And they would not know. The bonds would come to them. It depends on the industrialist or the person who is funding it, which party he wants to give the bond to. He buys the bond, and within 10 days, there is a quarter. Every quarter, 10 days is allocated for issuing these bonds. He cannot keep it with himself. He has to give it, so that, it's not manipulated. It doesn't get involved into generation of black money. It's a very technical thing. You see, now, coming to the CIC order, CIC has actually gone by the records, because the Act says that you cannot say so. And CIC cannot declare, as per the law of the RTI Act, unless you take permission from somebody who is a donor, and nobody knows who is the donor, because the person who has bought the bond,
except the government,
his secrecy is maintained. So I don't know what is the fuss about.
Does the government know who is the donor?
No, the government doesn't know.
Does the SBI know who is the donor? What are you saying?
SBI.
You are trying to tell me you're cracking down on black money, but nobody knows where all of this money is coming from?
It's not black money. It's not black money.
How would you know? You don't know where it's coming from.
You are purchasing the bond, but your record is kept secret.
By whom?
Your record is kept secret.
Somebody has to verify it, Mr. Sudesh Verma. Somebody has to verify it. Somebody has to audit it.
I'll tell you why. What is the logic behind it? Let us try to understand the logic. The logic is that if one party knows that one person is funding this party, and then there can be a vendetta politics. If the other party comes to power, just to prevent that from happening and to give security to the donors, so that they're not
So backroom, closed door, shady deals between corporates in our country and across the world with political parties is fine, but vendetta politics is the problem.
No.
I don't understand. Okay, 1 minute, Mr. Sudesh Verma. You made multiple points. Let's take them one by one.
You do not know who has donated.
Mr. Sudesh Verma,
you do not know who has given.
Mr. Sudesh Verma, I am sure somebody for a corporate party for whom you've removed the cap for donation and said there is no limit to how much you can donate, to whom you can donate, will definitely want to come and tell you, I have given so much paisa to you. Let's just be honest about it. Everything else, Mr. Sudesh Verma, is because of a law that your government designed. If you are quoting the act to me and saying, 1 minute, if you are quoting the act to me and the law to me saying that the CIC cannot divulge the information because the law says it is anonymous and the information isn't given to anybody, it's how your government designed it, not...
There are many court judgments. CIC goes only by the legal aspect. You are talking about the moral aspect and the political aspect.
No, I am talking about all three. I have a problem with the legal aspect as well. But you brought in the law. I have a problem with this legal aspect too. Okay, 1 minute. 1 minute, please.
Strictly by the law.
Yes, let's go strictly by the law. I am saying I have a problem with this law. I have a problem that the then Finance Minister Arun Jaitley brought it as part of the budget, Mr. Sudesh Verma. I have a problem with that. I have a problem with the law. I am saying that.
Everybody has a problem.
Because it is unethical. It is downright opaque. And it is not what I deserve as a citizen of this country, Mr. Sudesh Verma. That's a different point. Let me go back to Mr. Shailesh Gandhi, Juhi Singh and Manu Sundaram. I request you to wait for just few more minutes because he's made some technical points. I want Shailesh Gandhi to respond on it since he was so vehemently shaking his head.
Mr. Verma is completely mistaken. The RTI Act has only been amended once by the current government, and that is only to change the designation of the commissioners. It has not been changed on any other account, as he seems to be indicating. This is not a fiduciary relationship. All the public, all the political parties must. But let me give you a small thing on this, which is a simple thing which can happen even now. The other 5 political parties can declare the amount given to them. By deduction, you can know how much BJP got. Who gave it is being kept a secret illegally. And as you said, international practice also goes against this. However, the government doesn't seem to care about public opinion. The government doesn't seem to care about transparency, nor about the RTI Act. As per the RTI Act, this is completely flawed, Judge. Not even flawed. It is the commissioner has just said, the respondent says this, and I accept it. There is no reasoning given by the commission as to how it accepts these contentions. The applicant had given a long series of arguments which have not been dealt with at all by the commission. It is obvious that the commission has just written down a dictated order, which is very, very sad. And this being as per the law is completely flawed. This, unfortunately, we cannot argue on this legal point, but I can tell you with experience and with my knowledge, legally, this is an untenable position and is wrong.
Okay. Let me bring in 2 other political parties and get their views in. And Juhi Singh, we start with you. Does this law make rational sense?
Tanvi, I don't know whether Mr. Verma is being consciously naive or condescending because this is a totally bizarre order. And I'll really put down some figures with due respect to Mr. Verma. 1,273 electoral bonds were bought in 12 phases, most of them in Mumbai and Delhi. 91.97% were more than 1 crore, were bonds of 1 crore. So you can really see that who is buying these bonds. Most of these bonds then went to the BJP, who was the government in power. So this is the data. How can you say that you are increasing transparency? This is totally opaque and not at all acceptable in dynamic democracy. We anyway follow a system where we follow the system of first past post. That is, most of our representatives are not really representing all the people who are voting, and to bring in such a funding where there can be easily a nexus between the ruling government and the corporates, the big business can be easily seen. Plus the CIC, I mean, maybe the RTI should be really abolished, and the office of CIC becomes really irrelevant because he is not really able to tell the people that who is funding your leader, that is the biggest public interest. There is no other public interest which he can serve. So maybe he needs to really put in his papers, especially with political parties. This is the only way for the election commission also to function in a relevant way, build a foundation, hold the parties accountable. You've already given what is done in the US and the UK, and there also the system is flawed, but at least they've got the principles right. And India, we are really moving. RTI was got because of this, that we want more and more information. It's the age of the information. So how can you say that this is really making the system transparent?
Yes, you know, in fact, Juhi Singh, I know often Mr. Shailesh Gandhi is on our shows where he campaigns and he speaks about strengthening the CIC and bringing in more information commissioner, IC officers, filling up the vacant posts. I'm sure tonight he's thinking that maybe some of these posts just need to be vacant, so at least you don't get these kind of orders which are so problematic. If it's on the point of law, then we need to look at the point of law. Allow me, Mr. Sudesh Verma, I just want to make a point.
Juhi has said something. I must respond to that if you allow me.
Yes, I will come to you because I'm sure Manu Sundaram also wants to say something that you would want to respond to.
Sure.
But to the point that you made, and I think Shailesh Gandhi referred to, the changes in the acts that took place when this was brought in, when this system of electoral bonds was brought in and announced by the BJP government in the budget and then implemented, it needed changes in various laws so that this could be enabled. And those amendments, Mr. Gandhi, I think what Sudesh Sharma was referring to was in the RTI Act, but the RPI Act, the Representation of the People Act, the RPA Act, yes. Because that act of 1951 required a change to implement this law, to which the Election Commission had a problem. The Election Commission had called it a retrograde step as far as transparency of donations is concerned. Then there was a change in the Companies Act, which also Mr. Sudesh Verma was referring to which also the Election Commission had a problem and said this amendment opens up the possibility of shell companies being set up for the sole purpose of making donation to political parties with no other business of consequence of having disbursable profits. So imagine, you are actually enabling black money and then saying, because nobody knows who the donors are, who's going to keep a check on it except the government. But if the government and the government-run party is getting a maximum number of donations, nobody in this country believes they are going to be doing any checks on where the money is coming from and how it is coming. And the third amendment, the key one, was to the Income Tax Act that Mr. Sudesh Verma said. Manu Sundaram, your view on this? At the end of the day, there may be one party which is benefiting right now, but the others will soon, in good times, in election times, you too can soon be getting a lot more money via this route.
Well, I don't think that should justify a law like the electoral bond scheme, nor should it justify the order. I mean, the order that the CIC has passed, quite frankly, is indefensible. But I think we can be grateful for one aspect, Tanvi, which is that thanks to this horrible order, we are all sitting here this evening, again, shining light at the original malaise, the original problem, which is the electoral bond scheme, which I wish to reiterate was enacted as a law as part of the budget speech in 2017. Now, that is the real problem. And that, quite frankly, is arbitrary. It promotes a greater level of opaqueness, and it is per se illegal. Lots and lots has been said already about today's order, especially by the former CIC, Mr. SHAILESH Gandhi, and I completely endorse his views that this particular disclosure of information cannot be exempted on the basis of it being a fiduciary duty, nor under 8(1)J, saying that, this is some personal interest. This is a matter of the highest public importance. In 2002, the Supreme Court held in a landmark decision that every voter, every elector had the right to know about his or her candidate's criminal antecedents. So when you contest an election for an MLA or an MP, you must disclose in an affidavit all the cases you face. Now, shouldn't, by the same logic, a voter be entitled to know who is funding and financing the political parties and candidates? There's also a terrible dichotomy in terms of every MP, MLA candidate has an upper limit of expenditure, right? So an MP candidate today can spend around 75, 77 lakhs, an MLA candidate around 28 to 30 lakhs. But there is no limit to the kind of donations, and what is worse, these donations can come in anonymously. And you've also touched upon one other important point, which is worth reiterating, that of the imbalance in information. You're 100% right. The SBI knows who's the donations, where the donations are coming from and where they are going. The government knows where they're coming. Unfortunately, everybody else, which includes the public, not to mention the opposition parties, have no idea. I just want to clarify one aspect of the electoral bond scheme, and I'm referring to, and anybody can look this up, go to the SBI, State Bank of India website and look up the FAQ on electoral bonds. The way you get the electoral bond is a corporate donor buys the electoral bond from State Bank of India and then gives it to a political party. Only a political party can then take it to the SBI and monetize that electoral bond within 15 days. So therefore, I do not think there is any merit in the argument that the political party does not know where the donation is coming from. The political party knows, the donor knows, SBI knows, and logically the government knows. The people who do not know are 99% of the people in the country, which is the public at large. Therefore, this is a matter of the highest public importance, and therefore, I don't think the CIC order is worth, like Mr. Shailesh Gandhi said, the price of the paper it was written on. Unfortunately, what is the next step? The next step is to challenge this by way of an appeal before the Supreme Court of India.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the Supreme Court is already seized of electoral bond matters from 3.5 years ago. And more unfortunately, the Supreme Court also has not made an adjudication. If the Supreme Court had determined the validity and constitutionality of the electoral bond scheme 3 years ago, maybe we wouldn't be having this conversation. So we've seen the government take a very bad stand. We've seen the CIC take a very bad stand. And unfortunately, my last hope is, as a lawyer, as a politician, is with the Supreme Court of this country, that they will determine the validity and constitutionality of the electoral bond scheme, which frankly I think is per se illegal and per se unconstitutional.
Yes, well, I have been, we've all been very keenly looking at the Supreme Court and this case that the Supreme Court is hearing, but we're still doing that, and we need to see where it finally goes. Dr. Qureshi, Mr. SUDESH, I'm coming to you, but Dr. Qureshi, just very quickly to ask you this question. As the way it has been defined right now, all of this money that the parties are getting, does the Election Commission at least find out about the donors via electoral bonds, or even the EC isn't informed about it?
Not at all. EC is not informed about it at all. As I told you earlier, every donation of more than 20,000 rupees was to be brought to the notice of Election Commission.
Yes.
Not anymore. And also, when we are discussing the stand of the CIC and the Supreme Court, you please remember that the Election Commission had opposed electoral bonds very strongly. And even in the Supreme Court, they have given this affidavit opposing it. And it is shocking that Supreme Court has found no time for such an important national issue for 3.5 years. I always used to say that the Supreme Court is the guardian angel of democracy and Election Commission. But now I'm confused. They spend one whole day on a bail application, and they have no time for 3.5 years on an issue of such national importance. So what do we expect? And also, I would also like to remind you that the earlier CIC order was that all political parties should be public authorities, and they should come under RTI. Everything of the political party should be under RTI, which means including their funds, their finances. Now, and the one question which you had asked, that whether it is black money, in fact, the fact that it was made opaque, the fact that the limit of 7% of donation which a company could make, now a company could donate 100% of its profit, and thirdly, that the Foreign Contributions Act has been amended with retrospective effect of 42 years, which means the foreign money can come in. Now, whether it is foreign money, I want to know, you want to know, we don't know. Whether it is black money, we want to know, we don't know. And which corporates are running the country, we want to know, and we don't know. And I would like to again come back to the first sentence of the budget speech of the finance minister, that without transparency of political funding, free and fair elections are not possible. Now, what does Mr. Verma say about that?
Okay, Mr. SUDESH Verma has a lot to answer. Yes, go ahead, please, and I will give you fair time for that.
You have posed so many questions. That is why I wanted 1:1, versus everybody, so that I could at least try to.
I have full faith in you in defending and making your arguments.
They're all learned people, And but good to hear that Samajwadi Party and DMK are talking of public morality is actually music to our ears, And on transparent funding, what we have done, we brought it from 20,000 to 2,000.
Yes.
Anything beyond 2,000 should be, accounted for, because 20,000, that was the way to manipulate the system. You bring so many people, make them pay 20,000 so that you don't take out for. You see, the whole system of this bond was evolved because we wanted that money should be transparent and spending should also be accountable. Accounting is done, auditing is done. It's just that who are the donors we do not know. And this sovereign guarantee was given to the donors, and that is why the CIC has given this order. And Supreme Court is rightly seized of the matter. And it's not that what the CIC says is final. There are many judgments of the court that have upturned the decision of the CIC. isn't it? CIC have turned the decision of the SIC, the State Information Commissioner, isn't it? So this goes on happening. It's not that laws, cut and dry thing and what it says that it's interpretation also which counts, isn't it? So let's wait for the final verdict of the court when Honorable Arun Jaitley, late Arun Jaitley ji, who was the finance minister, brought this principle of bonding for financing elections. That time all the parties said, no, don't disclose the identity. This would not be fair to the donors. And when he had given this, he had said that although it may not be a very transparent way of funding, it may not be the best system, but we are evolving. We are trying to evolve the system, and in the present scenario, this appears to be the best system. So we are in the process of evolving. Political parties should reach a consensus. Election Commission should also come into picture, and we should devise a way by which transparent funding can be done in the most transparent way.
Okay, so you and I debated the legal aspect. We've had debates now on the political aspect also. Now, I have one question for you, Mr. Sudesh Sharma, before we go to JUNIE Singh and Manu for a response. Tell me, how do you justify this? You're tightening the norms and you're cracking down on all kinds of institutions, whether it's farmer groups and Kisan unions to NGOs of all kinds about foreign funding. And you ask them questions. Everything from the Sterlite unrest to the Hathras protest is linked to foreign funding and made to sound like an anti-national activity. Then why is it that your party believes that there should be no cap and no disclosure about foreign funding to political parties? What makes you different?
No. We are not talking of foreign funding. We are talking of funding by bond, which is the maximum limit is 1 crore. You cannot purchase a bond of more than 1 crore. You can have multiples of 1 crore. You see, Tanvi, one question you raised, about shell companies. Let me tell you, after the Modi government came to power, action has been taken. More than lakhs of shell companies have been closed, which was used by the earlier establishment to fund their political activity. We have closed that system. More than 3 lakh directors, action has been taken against them. Now, those who are running the companies know how difficult it is to run a shell company. You have to show activities and you have to audit it regularly. You have to fight with the registrar companies of India on a regular basis. It's difficult now. It's extremely difficult. And those who are running the business, they know. So, shell companies, issue will not come. The moment, something happens, our computer system will come to know and action will be taken. You see, income tax authorities, ED, NIA, these are the agencies which act independently on a regular basis. Suppose, as for example, I'll tell you, CA this, PFI, 25 accounts, money was withdrawn, automatically the agency should come into picture. If I deposit more than 50,000, in my account, the agency will automatically come to know. They should have their own direction.
But it won't come automatically in the picture, if the money is coming through electoral bonds.
Here in the farmers' protest,
and going to the BJP. Or in West Bengal, if it is going to the TMC, then maybe it will come in the picture and very quickly IT department will start asking questions.
No, if anybody has a problem, they can always complain. If they have anything.
How will we complain, Mr. Sudesh Verma? We have no information. You are not even giving us information under the RTI. On what basis am I supposed to ask questions? I don't know who the donor is. I don't know which donor has given how much money. I don't know which monies come from India or abroad, which country, for what purpose, for what motive, Mr. Sudesh Verma. I don't know. How am I going to ask you any questions?
I can only try to explain, Tanvi, because you are an educated person and you are trying to build. Let me try to explain. I'm not saying, during demonetization, you may be aware, if you look at the newspapers, many BJP karyakartas were caught. They are found guilty. Action taken against them. Many bank officials, action was taken against them. So action takes place. It may not have been advertised. And when it comes against a party that is in the position of the BJP, immediately that becomes news. Here nothing is against farmers. In farmers education. But people may have used foreign money to create a bad name for this education we don't want. And there's the time to catch them.
Okay.
They will be caught completely unaware. So we should appreciate the agency for acting in such a good faith.
No. I am not questioning agencies' actions in other instances. I am simply saying that in this instance, you are not leaving us any scope for action because there is no information. Information, Mr. Sudesh Verma, is the king. It's all about information and data in today's day and age. And you are taking that power away from the people of this country.
Tanvi, can I say what happened during Miraj controversy? Rafale controversy? What happened? A lot of allegations were made. Supreme Court also knew this is a sensitive matter. They asked in sealed envelope Government did not shy away from Supreme Court because you have to trust the court that the matter is not going to be public.
The sensitive defense deals, and what two governments agree between themselves has nothing to do with political parties, Mr. Sudesh Verma. Please don't equate government transactions to what political parties do. There are two very different things.
Guarantee is being given, Tanvi. You cannot violate it. As simple as that.
Okay, Juhi Singh wanted to make a point. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. So, Tanvi, for all the sarcasm and the anger of our able spokesperson, Mr. Verma, he's not convinced himself about it.
If you want to make it more transparent.
That this is a way to get back money. This is a way to build up shell companies. This is a way for the BJP. The BJP certainly has very rich karyakartas. Everybody buying these 1 crore bonds. But it's also time now, maybe it's time public funded CIC office, I think we are funding it out of the taxpayers' money. So maybe that should be abolished too, because he doesn't need to answer any questions. He doesn't feel accountable. But we are definitely playing with the transparency of the electoral system. By this entire system, corruption is increasing. The BJP is in the party of power, and it's there all in the public domain, the data. I mean, Mr. Verma has not been getting donations of 2,000, definitely. And the Election Commission is definitely not being updated with these public funding contributions. And why can't you share this information? I mean, I thought this was digital India. The India was being built for the people to ask questions. The Supreme Court, of course, needs to look, because they have certain names in a sealed cover and a reply also from the Election Commission. So maybe, I mean, this very relevant platform will wake up everybody, because if we do not take this seriously, we are definitely not sending the right representatives and taking away the choice of the people to choose their representatives.
Manu Sundaram, go ahead, please.
Well, just to reiterate a few other points that a few other panelists have already made, the thrust of the CIC order, read with the actions of this government in enacting and carrying through the electoral bond scheme, is extremely disempowering. It does not allow citizens to know information. It denies voters their right to know about their candidates. And to be fair, it has no place in our democracy. The only model of government or governance where such disempowerment and such disenfranchisement happens is a dictatorship and is in fascist regimes. I hope that India has not yet touched the abyss of such a setup. And therefore, like I said, my last hope, my only glimmer of hope rests with the Supreme Court. In spite of it not having taken any action in about 3.5 years, I still hope against hope that they will come when it matters, because it is their own judgment that rules the field. In the ADR case and the PUCL cases in 2002 and 2003, it was the Supreme Court that first said that the electors have a right to know about their candidates and how certain candidates with criminal antecedents should disclose what cases that has been filed against them. So therefore, we are not asking for the Supreme Court to do anything new. I think we're just asking for a restatement of the values and principles that the Supreme Court has held to be dear, and therefore, ultimately protect the fundamental right to freedom of speech, expression, the right to know, and ultimately the right to life and livelihood, because democracy is part of the basic structure of this Constitution, and therefore that needs to be protected as well.
Yes, sir. Well, it comes down to the Supreme Court, but I just want to tell our viewers, this is the latest controversy, which is why we're talking about it, but I want to refresh your memory in case you've forgotten. There was a series of these exposés that were done, by HuffPost. One of them said that the RBI also, very close to the final decision, just in the run-up to the final days of the budget announcement. Till then, the RBI was very, very hesitant about this decision that the government was going to make. And in fact, they themselves raised a red flag and raised a warning about it. But the government still went ahead and in 2017 made this announcement about the electoral bonds. The government, in fact, at one point of time asked for extra trail period. Now, these electoral bonds are meant to be sold in a specific defined days, a window that opens and closes. And in that time, you can go to the bank, take up this form, fill it up, and that's how you donate your money. But there have been exceptions made 2 times, both times ahead of state elections. The government asked for these exceptions. The government then, in another instance, also asked the State Bank of India to accept expired bonds. Like Mr. Sudesh Verma was saying, there is a time period, about 10 odd days, within which you have to go and redeem these bonds so that you get the money. These bonds had expired, but the government said, no, make an exception. This too was politically timed to a very important event where we were dealing with a case of a hung assembly in Karnataka. And there were allegations being made of money being offered to various sides for poaching of MLAs. The Election Commission has repeatedly raised concerns to what Dr. Qureshi was saying. Repeatedly, the Election Commission has raised concerns, letter after letter written to the Finance Ministry about these electoral bonds and the way they have been designed. The Law Commission also warned the government and advised against this. So, department within the government, the Election Commission, the Reserve Bank of India, they have all opposed this. The government reportedly misled the parliament, saying they did not know of the Election Commission's concerns, even though by then the letters were already out. But in a written letter, written reply to the parliament, the government said, oh, we didn't know. And we go on with this tool. We go on with this electoral bond tool to raise money. Keep in mind, 5 big state elections are coming up, 5 big crucial ones. West Bengal being one of them, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Assam. And if we don't get this straight, it is only going to lead to more and more opaque money coming in simply for the political parties, where you and I don't know who we are choosing and who is the person who is backing them. That is essentially the point here. Mr. Shailesh Gandhi, the last comment to you, is Supreme Court really the only option now? Can this also now be separately taken to the Supreme Court? Should it be taken to the Supreme Court?
I think it should be, but given the current position, I'm not too sure if a decision will come out fast enough, which is unfortunate. I mean, it looks like a very pessimistic view, but at this moment, I don't see any hope of getting a fast decision from the Supreme Court.
Mr. Sudesh Verma.
Yeah, Tanvi, what you summed up quite okay, but there is an amendment I would like to move, which is that RBI had the problems because the bonds were not named in serial numbers. They must have serial numbers for accountability, and they wanted to keep the custody in their custody. But now, later they agreed that, okay, SBI is fine. SBI's branches, select branches can issue, and there is a serial number, but there is no name of donor and all. And this was the point which was agreed to. RBI agreed. This is what I'm saying. You are just building your narration on one report, but after that also many things happen.
That is basis the fact that you gave the RBI only a handful of days to decide on this before the announcement was made.
It keeps on happening. All the departments will give their objections, then there will be discussion, negotiation, and the best system will evolve. This is how the government runs.
So what about the Election Commission then, Mr. Sudesh Verma? Since you do want to specifically respond to what I am raising, the Election Commission said this is a retrograde step as far as transparency of donations is concerned. This proviso needs to be withdrawn when it came to changes in the Representation of People Act. The Election Commission also spoke about how this will lead to shell companies and black money. Time after time, the Election Commission has written, and then your government gave a written reply to the Parliament saying we didn't know about these issues.
Can I say, Tanvi,
yes.
about shell companies I have already spoken, and let me tell you, I have quoted Honorable late Arun Jaitley ji. He himself said that this is not the best system, and we are in the process of evolving. I am not saying that this is the best system we have evolved. There is a need for greater transparency, and we should discuss and evolve a better system.
Transparency for whom?
For people of this country.
How? You are not giving the information to the people.
Tell me the issue you are debating today about the CIC, that should be seen in the context of the law that was made that gave a sovereign commitment to the donors that your identity will not be revealed. And if a question is asked from RBI that reveal it, then naturally the CIC will say, no, you can't.
Okay, okay, that's a very basic, valid point you've raised. Mr. Shailesh Gandhi, that's the point that has been raised, that if now the way the electoral bonds are designed and the system is set up, you have given that assurance to the donor that your identity will not be revealed. So can the CIC do that?
That's an illegal assurance. It is like saying a private guarantee is given, saying that somebody will murder somebody. Is that a legal position? This is absurd. It is a guarantee given outside the law and violates the RTI Act. So I'm not able to understand what is being said. A completely illegal guarantee is given, and then you are saying the RTI Act doesn't prevail.
But that is, Mr. Shailesh Gandhi, as part of the scheme and the law that has been brought in. That's exactly what they've done. The electoral bonds are designed in a way that their identity remains a secret.
And the claim for transparency is 5,000 rupees will be transparent, but 5 crores or 500 crores will not be transparent.
Yes, 2,000 rupees is transparent, but 1 crore is not transparent, no matter how many of those bonds that you buy, because there is no limit to how much any corporate can now donate to you, and you can happily do so anonymously, and nobody will ever find out. Unfortunately, that's how it is. Now, no matter what we say sitting here, with all of our experts, it's really now up to the Supreme Court, because the government has been very clear about it. Yes, Dr. Qureshi, you wanted to make a point. Go ahead, please.
Just one suggestion. Already death knell of transparency has been sounded. Only the last nail in the coffin is required, and that could be we should bring in political funding under Official Secrets Act. That is all that is left now.
That's very witty.
Okay, I hope not. I hope not. Sometimes even these things can be taken seriously. I hope not. But point well made, Dr. Qureshi. Thank you so much for for making that point as well. Completely out of time. I'm going to thank all of our panelists for joining us on this conversation. This is what the Election Commission said to the Supreme Court the last time. The Supreme Court asked the Election Commission about the status and its views. The Election Commission said in an affidavit that, yeah, we've got now some details about the donation that's come in via electoral bonds from the parties in sealed envelopes. This was in February last year. Since then, we don't know what has happened. This is the extent of transparency. Crores of money, I am not even exaggerating this, is going to every single political party ahead of elections. State elections, general elections, even civic body elections, even during hung assembly and result time. And we don't know where this money is coming from, who is funding our political parties. I was the first one to stand up and cheer for this government when they came out with the decision that they're going to make anonymous donation limit from 20,000 to 2,000, that anything above 2,000, if it's being given as cash, it has to be revealed. The names have to come out. You have to say who you are, where you got this money from. So political parties, especially the smaller regional parties, even the big ones, many of whom depend on these smaller donations that they get from their supporters across cities and towns and villages, they had to come up and tell the Election Commission and reveal it to the country where they were getting the cash from, which is a great step in a step towards transparency. But soon after, the government turned around and said, and also, there is this new method called the electoral bonds, where you just need to go to the State Bank of India, a public sector-owned bank, and anonymously give us the money, which will be given to the political parties. The political parties claim they don't know who gave them the money. So on their own, even if the Samajwadi Party or the DMK wants to take the higher moral ground and saying this is a bad move, they can't disclose because they say they don't have the details of who gave them the money. What kind of a system is this? Where we demand accountability from every other single institution in our country and transparency, and question every single one of us about all the money that comes into our accounts and where it goes and how it goes. But not of our netas and parties who form our governments. It's a travesty and nothing more. Thank you so much for joining us on this conversation.